Hello, good afternoon. It is your host, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, and today's date is Monday, October 13th, 2025. The time is 2:11 p.m., and I am in Miami, Florida. The topic of today's lecture is Operation Cowardice. Now, before I start this lecture, I would like to begin, as I have done so many others, by addressing certain persons who have a lasting obsession with myself, with my significant other Lori, our lifestyle, my project, and other aspects of my personal and professional lives, particularly those persons who have decided that hacking my tablet, using a covert system of private investigators and other liaisons to constantly keep track of me and my significant other wherever we go. People who ask these same private investigators and liaisons to keep a special eye on us because of how frightening and dangerous and so forth we are. And the useful idiot stalkers who are at the constant command of these private investigators, undercover operatives, and federal liaisons that do whatever they ask them to do, particularly those actions that require less verbal communication and more physical gesturing and signaling. You apparently must not like your wife and kids and your families too much because you obviously don't spend that much time with them. The reason you don't spend that much time with them is because you think that my life and the life of my significant other Lori is more important or more interesting than your lives at home. So apparently you have found a way to invest in stereo sound boom equipment or something, and you have quite a few hacking mechanisms that you like to use on me so that you can hear my lectures live, probably because you are fans of mine, because you know, as the saying goes, the people that hate you the most are typically your biggest fans. So you are what I like to refer to as anti-fans, because you like what I do, you envy what I do, you covet what I do, and you're also ashamed at yourselves for allowing yourselves to be discovered as holistically as you have been, and you've allowed yourselves to be exposed in a fairly holistic manner as well. And even those of you that stick to the more simple-minded acts of hate, perversion, sabotage, violence, hostility, pandering, annoyance, all the stuff that gang stalkers do, always remember something, okay? When the going gets tough, when it all comes down on you, when you feel you're at the end of your rope, and I'm talking to you liaisons, I'm talking to you private investigators, I'm talking to you stalkers, I'm talking to you liaisons, all of you that signal each other while I'm out and about so you can constantly be in my way, obstructing my path. Okay, with vehicles, cars, pedestrians, scooters, bicycles, skateboards, okay, germ-flinging assholes, I mean the whole nine. Alright, I'm talking to all of you right now, okay? I'm trying to give you a word of encouragement here. Okay, the title of this lecture is Operation Cowardice, but I'm trying to give you a word of encouragement here, okay? This is to all my stalkers, okay, the ones that are constantly in my way. You're not my friends. And you're not the friends of my significant other. And the way I know you're not my friends is because every time you come around me, something bad happens. Okay? If a person or a group of people who are constantly in your presence, constantly making themselves known, constantly making themselves seen, constantly in your way, constantly trying to control your movements, constantly expressing some sort of a disdain for you, okay? Particularly those who do so with the help of others in the form of clandestine signaling mechanisms and so forth, so you know where I'm at. You know who the target is. You know who to pester. I'm talking to you, okay? The title of this lecture is Operation Cowardice, but I'm trying to give you words of encouragement here, okay? When it seems all hope is lost, okay? When it seems that you can't go any further as gang stalkers, okay? Because that is your occupation. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care what you've done for a living. I don't care what your educational background is. I don't care what your academic credentials are. I don't care what kind of family you come from. I don't care what your nationality or demographic is. You're gang stalkers. That's your occupation. That's your nationality, and that's who you are. Okay? Next time you go and renew your driver's license at your local DMV, when it asks you for your race or your ethnicity or anything of the sort, just scratch out whatever it is that's there and just write in gang stalker, because you're a nation of people. Okay, you're a nation of like-minded signaler, stalker, harasser bunches. Okay, and that is your occupation. Okay, I don't care what your race is. If you participate in this hostile signaling mechanism, okay, your race is gang stalker. Your nationality is gang stalker. Okay, your ethnicity is gang stalker. Okay, your country of origin is gang stalker. You have all essentially revoked, or rather disowned or divorced yourselves from anything that constitutes individuality. You are now a group, a herd. You're no longer individuals. Okay, you're gang stalkers. Okay, I'm talking to you right now. Okay, when it seems that you can't go any further and that you've tried all there is to do and you just can't stand out, you just can't make yourself matter, you just can't put yourself above the next person, you just can't make yourself feel like more than just a number or a statistic or just another person on the U.S. Census. Okay, when you feel like you've maxed out your opportunities in life, talking to you stalkers now, when you feel like you've maxed out your capabilities, your potential, your talents, and you're stuck somewhere that you just don't feel fulfilled. You know, as a gang stalker, you know, you feel like your life lacks purpose. And you hope that this signaling mechanism, this communication mechanism, gives your life more purpose. I just want to say to you, just keep this in mind. Bear in mind that just when you're at the point where you feel like you've done all you can do in this life, remember, and these are the words from Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, founder and CEO of EIS Media Group and Bible's Discourses LLC. When it feels like you're at your wits' end, gang stalkers, listen to me. Just remember. Okay, walk in front of your mirror, look in front of your mirror, look at your own reflection in the mirror, and say to yourself, you, point at the person in the mirror, okay? Point at the person in the mirror and say, you use a state-sanctioned signaling mechanism to find people to pester when you go out in public. That's what I want you to say. When all feels lost, when all seems lost, go to the mirror. It doesn't have to be the mirror in your home. It can be the mirror in the bathroom at wherever you work. It can be at your friend's house. It could be at your grandma's house. It could be at your uncle's house. It could be at your great aunt's house. It could be in the restroom of a McDonald's you like to go to. It could be the restroom of your favorite Starbucks. It could be the restroom of your favorite Taco Bell or your local Walgreens or CVS or Maybe you shop at Aldi or Publix. Just find a restroom, stalkers. Go right into that restroom with your head held high. Reminisce on your life and all you've done to make it worthwhile. All you've done to make it interesting. And you look at yourself right in that mirror and you say, you use a state-sanctioned signaling mechanism to find people to pester out in public. I'm going to say that one more time, ladies and gentlemen, because third time's a charm. You know, that not everybody understands things the first time they hear it. You know, you have some people that learn right away. You have some people that learn the next go around. You have other people that it takes 3, 4, or 5 times of hearing the same damn thing before you finally understand it. Okay, and I'm starting to think that clandestine gang stalkers are the type of people that you got to explain something to them 5, 10, 100 times before it finally registers. That's why they use signals. Okay, vehicular maneuvers, verbal commands, physical gestures, hand movements, and so forth. Signals it's easier for them to communicate with signals, because a lot of gang stalkers, they don't communicate too well. They don't receive communication too well, and they appear to lack the cerebral capacity to understand something the first go around. So they make it easy for them. The liaisons make it easy for them. Just follow this signal, follow that signal. We'll make it easy for you, right? So because of that reality, that fact, and that a lot of stalkers have trouble receiving communication, and that's what I am. I am a communicator. That's my occupation. So because I know there will be gang stalkers listen to this, I want to say it a third time, because some of you are a little slow. Okay, even some of the ones that hold down decent jobs, you're a little slow. Okay? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this nice and easy for you. I'm gonna say it a third time. Okay? I've already said it twice, but you know what? I just have this vision right now of gang stalkers listening to my audio right now, and they're like seeing stars. You know, they're seeing rubber ducks flying around their heads. You know, like in the cartoons, like Tom and Jerry, for example, when one hits the other on the head or what have you. You know, the cartoon mouse and the cartoon cat, they're always going back and forth scrapping. One of them falls down, hits their head. They got the birds flying around their head, or stars flying around their head, or what have you flying around their head. It's sort of like an indicator that they're real dizzy and they're seeing stars and that kind of thing. That's what I imagine my stalkers have right now. Okay, they don't really understand the intricacy of what's going on. They don't look at the socio-political aspect of what's going on. They don't look at the global economic impact of what's going on. They don't look at the militaristic or the governmental aspect of what's going on. They don't look at the political aspect of what's going on. They don't look at the psychological aspect, the sociological aspect, the socioeconomic aspect. They don't look at none of that. All they know is when you see this signal or that signal, you do this or that to that person. That's all gang stalkers see. That's why it's so hard to get rid of them. Some of them are too dumb to know when a person doesn't want to be around them. So sometimes just telling them to get lost is not good enough. Sometimes you have to tell them 2, 3, or 10 times to get lost. And then with a person like me, I have to upload video after video after video with the hopes that either the Congress, the Departments of Defense or Justice, or the stalkers themselves will listen to one of them and something will just click. You know, maybe lightning will strike. You know, maybe they'll have their eureka moment where everything just makes sense. Everything just comes all together full circle. And the request being made, or rather the command that's being made, Take your stalking elsewhere. Take your signals elsewhere. Take yourself elsewhere, because I don't want to be bothered. Maybe that will make some sense to the above. And to the liaisons and the federal auxiliaries that start the action and mobilize these goons, maybe something will click with them too, if it's possible. Some of them are a little slow as well. That's why most of my appeals are to Congress, rather than to the liaisons or the private investigators or the undercover operatives, because a lot of them don't really appear to have much of an IQ. You see? So all you can really do with them is, if they don't understand what a middle finger is, sometimes you just have to get up and walk away. Okay? Because they are not very complex thinkers. You see? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remind all of the above that ultimately you are not welcome in my vicinity. So get lost and go pester somebody else. But I can't say that without saying this. Keep something in mind. You take state-sanctioned signaling mechanisms from third parties to find people to pester, annoy, harass, or attack in public. Okay, that's what you need to say to the person in the mirror. Now, ultimately, there is a gelatin epidemic in our Congress. They don't appear to want to address the issue. They appear to be of the mindset that this issue is going to be swept under the rug, or that it can be minimized, or that it could be glossed over, or even completely ignored. I think that's sort of the end goal, is to simply either ignore it or initiate an investigation, a federal investigation into it, that will take so long that everyone who's ever experienced this program in its entirety will be deceased before any of the conclusions of the investigation will be made public. Okay, and mind you, it's not just natural born citizens participating in gang stalking. There's illegal aliens that do it too. Okay, it's not even just the general populace of the United States. There are people in this country that don't speak a word of English that participate in this against English-speaking persons whose generations go back 600 years. Ultimately, I didn't ask you for your company. I didn't ask you for your presence. I didn't ask you for your time. I didn't ask you for anything. As a matter of fact, I don't want anything from you. And neither does my significant other. And as a matter of fact, you'd do better to just get the hell out of my face. Because I think you and I are better off not around one another, you see? And that's not just the stalkers, that's the liaisons, the undercover operatives, the private investigators, all the people that participate in this organized harassment mechanism. Okay? Some of you have families, go back to them. They're probably sitting at home right now wondering where you are and why you're not at home watching Dora the Explorer or Blue's Clues or Garfield the Cat with them. Why are you listening to Emmanuel Isaiah Smith talk about what you do rather than being at home with your family? I didn't ask you to be here. I don't want you or none of your stalkers around me. So, why be here? Unless you're trying to start some sort of commotion that might lead to you making some kind of a name for yourself. But there are more virtuous ways to make a name for yourself. Operation Cowardice is the name of this lecture, ladies and gentlemen. Gang stalking goes by a lot of names, and rightfully so. And let's not try and at this point deny its existence. It exists. Okay? There are numerous corporate and governmental, we'll say corporate, governmental, and societal actors in this program that don't want they don't want people to know that it exists. Okay, they were always of the mindset, we can do this clandestine signaling mechanism forever. It'll make life so much easier for us and so much harder for the people that we don't want to see succeed. We can teach this to our kids. We can teach it to our grandkids. We could have future generations of gang stalkers that'll make this country look exactly the way we want it to look and function exactly the way we want it to function. Then here comes along Emmanuel, Isaiah Smith, and a number of other enterprising persons who say, you know what? This thing stinks. This program stinks. We think the people that practice it are criminally irresponsible, and we think that the Congress of the United States is criminally negligent for having implemented it, continually financed it, and then turn around and not acknowledge it. We think that this is a egregious and, quite frankly, violent negation of the United States Constitution and its precepts. So guys like me come to these conclusions, and I put my research, my experiences, and my findings on the internet for the whole world to see. All right, I'm going to go easy on you stalkers today. I'm not going to call what you do gang stalking, because I believe that that's part of the reason why the Congress of the United States, the national security apparatus of this country, the intelligence apparatus of this country have kept their mouths shut about it. They don't like the name. They think it would cause international embarrassment for the United States, this world superpower, to have been found to allow its defense mechanism to organize mobs of hostile persons using signaling mechanisms to wage a silent war against segments of the population who are supposed to be made to feel like we don't belong here in the United States. Indeed, we don't belong here on earth at all. That our very presence on the earth is what you might describe as +1, and that the people that use this signaling mechanism are the prime or ideal citizens that should be allowed to use disgusting acts of thuggery against people that, quite frankly, they don't know. So, ultimately, what you have is a situation where this program, this monstrosity, this Leviathan has been given a name, and it's called gang stalking. Some people, particularly in the defense capacity, don't like that name. We don't like being called gang stalkers. We don't like what we do to be called gang stalking. Yeah, we use a signaling mechanism. Yeah, we pester people out in public. It makes our lives easier. It makes us feel better about ourselves. It makes us feel strong. It makes us feel united. It makes us feel a part of something greater than ourselves to be able to go out in public, take and receive signals that lead us to a targeted person that we can then descend upon like a pack of wild hyenas with no recourse. Okay, we don't want that to be called gang stalking. That might make us look bad. We're not going to say we're not going to come forward about it. We're just going to go on with our lives, and we hope that the Congress is on our side and not on the side of the targeted persons. And we want Congress to be quiet about this too. We want the news media to be quiet about it too. And the national security apparatus that uses these signals with us is obviously on our side, and because they control the media, because they control Congress, because they control pretty much all mass communication outlets, Okay, they can make it so that no one talks about this. So we feel safe in what we're doing. We're going to continue doing what we do. It makes us feel big. It makes us feel important. It makes us feel untouchable. And some of us have gotten really good jobs because of our ability to send and receive signals, clandestine ones. We don't want this to be called gang stalking. We don't want this to be called cause stalking, hate stalking, community harassment, or covert war. We believe that what we do is noble and just. We believe what we do is good for society, and what we do is good for ourselves and our families. So we're going to continue practicing this clandestine signaling mechanism, and we'll continue to pester people out in public that we believe are suspicious, or who we're told are suspicious by third parties. And yes, we will use this out in the open because this is our country, and you know how we know it's our country is because we are allowed to use this signaling mechanism with no recourse and no consequence. Now, that's not to say, ladies and gentlemen, that I believe that the entire police apparatus in this country is behind that. I actually think a lot of police officers, if they were fully briefed on this program, they would want to destroy it. Okay, because this program makes police officers' job more difficult in my estimation, because you have people that send signals to other people who are committing crimes that there are police coming. And yes, there are universal signals that people send each other, verbal commands, vehicular maneuvers, and hand gestures that party A can send to party B to let them know, hey, get out of here, do this, do that, duck, run, hide, jump over off a bridge, jump over in a ditch, there's the police coming. That makes police investigations more difficult. That makes federal investigations more difficult. Okay? If there are military investigations going on, it makes their lives more difficult. I believe there are military personnel that wouldn't like this program. All right? I believe that there are politicians who don't know it exists because it was legalized by stealth anyhow on the coattails of national security legislation. So, when you talk about it as gang stalking, that's exactly what it is. But we'll call it something different today. Because it's an operation that involves cowardly actions, we'll call it Operation Cowardice. Because it allows people to perpetrate extreme acts of cowardice on their fellow U.S. citizens with no recourse. You want to run somebody over with a car today? Wait for the signal. You want to trip somebody down a flight of stairs today? Wait on the signal. You want to catch somebody slipping and take their property? Wait on a signal. You want to do a sexual assault on that girl you've been eyeing? Wait on a signal. We'll tell you when the coast is clear. You want to harm that kid you saw over there playing in the sandbox? Wait on a signal. You want to end somebody's life today? Wait on a signal. You want to drain somebody of their life savings through their savings account or bank or checking account or what have you? Wait on a signal. That neighbor you got where you're jealous of, that who has a nicer house than you want to burn their house down? Wait on a signal. Don't try it yourself. You might get caught. Wait on a signal from one of your fellow stalkers and everything will be okay. You can perpetrate any act of thuggery. Just wait on the signal. Because what the signal does is the signaling allows stalker A to inform stalker B, yeah, okay, there's the target. Descend upon him. Commit any act of hostility you want. This signal is a good signal because there are fellow stalkers around. We're watching each other's back, and also there's no police around. Commit any human atrocity you want, just wait on the signal. You see, it gives a certain segment of the population essentially a green light to not only act in a way that is buffoonish, hostile, and idiotic, but in a way that is also violent, larcenous, and homicidal. You want to cough on this person or that person, or sneeze on that person or that person, or vomit on that person or that person, or use another bodily function on this person or that person that might gross them out or make them sick. Wait on the signal. We'll tell you exactly who to do that to. And then you, the stalker, can walk away from that scenario with your head held high that you were able to commit a disgusting act of hostility against your fellow Americans with no recourse. Why? Because there are fellow stalkers around you and there are no police present. They're going to make sure of that. They're going to make sure to give you the signal that will correspond with other stalkers being in the area and there not being any police present. You want to do this stuff at church? You want to feel like you're better than God, like you're bigger than God, like you're better than Christ, that you're bigger than Christ. I know some stalkers in church that'll give you a signal you can use some gang stalking right in the middle of a sermon. And the pastor won't say a damn thing. You know why? Because he's either a signal, he's either a stalker, or he's someone too afraid to intervene. You can use organized stalking tactics right in service. You ever been to a Catholic mass, ladies and gentlemen? You see how the pageantry and the solemn atmosphere and the reverence and the sense of decorum are all present at once? How quiet everything is? Wouldn't it be fun? Wouldn't it be interesting to tell your friends at the office, or maybe you go back home, you tell your wife and kids, hey, I disrupted a sacrament today and nothing happened to me. I feel like a big shot now. All I had to do was wait on the signal from the next stalker. They always know when to do this kind of thing and get away with it. Operation Cowardice. That's what I call it. The kind of person that would perpetrate an act of hostility against another United States citizen is a coward already. But extreme acts of cowardice is when a state-sanctioned signaling mechanism embeds itself into the American legal code and into society in general, that allows people to allow themselves to be used as weapons against another person. Not because that person's done anything wrong, but simply because someone else has signaled you or told you that that was the person to mess with, that that was the person to bother, or that that was the person to unleash your hostilities upon just because I say that's the person to do that to. Just trust me. Okay, you guys remember that old saying, trust me, I'm a doctor? Well, they got a new saying that they use all across the United States. It says, trust me, I'm a stalker. Trust me, I know how it's done. Trust me, I know how to put you in a position to where you can do anything to anybody and not see any consequences for your actions at all. And the reason you won't see consequences for your action is because this is a state-sanctioned mechanism. The taxpayer buys it, Congress ignores it, and the national security apparatus is constantly prosecuting it. It's a perfect storm of useful idiot activity. And it's perpetrated in this country in all 50 states. And in most corporate and or governmental institutions, they all got at least a handful of stalkers that use this signaling mechanism. It's a club. Okay, it's a fraternity, it's a sorority, it's a secret society, it's a cabal, it's a clandestine group. It's definitely nationwide because it's of a federal nature. That means there are no jurisdictions or no boundaries to it. Is it worldwide? I don't know. It might be, it might not be. Me personally, the only other country I visited is Canada. And that was almost 30 years ago now. I don't know what's going on in Canada right now. I read world news quite a bit, but that's not the same as actually living in another country and observing the people, observing the businesses, observing the societal functions, observing the governments. Only a person that lives in a country can identify whether or not organized stalking happens in that country. Is it this program, gang stalking, community harassment? Is it something that exists worldwide? That remains to be seen, ladies and gentlemen. I've read community forums of persons that live in various other countries that say that they experience the same thing in other countries. If they're telling the truth, that means this horrible political scourge has manifested in countries outside of the United States. And that's unfortunate, because if it's a violation of our Constitution, and it is, and it's not only a violation of the Constitution, it's a violation of human rights. That means it's a violation of the constitutions of other countries, as well as their human rights laws as well. It's something that needs to be rooted out if countries and governments alike are going to progress through the ages with cohesion. The only way that is going to happen is if this program, okay, which is my beat as a news reporter, and the very topic that I have communicated to the world about over a 10-year period, clandestine gang stalking, it has to be rooted out. It has to be repealed. It has to be deleted. It has to be forfeited. It has to be revoked. Not just for a month, not just for a year, but forever. What is Operation Cowardice? Well, it's when a federal entity says, you know what? We looked over in the history books and saw a program that Adolf Hitler run called the Schutzstaffel. And we think that we could use something like that here in the United States and run it in such a way so as certain segments of the population can benefit and other segments of the population can be used for experimentation purposes. There are obviously businesses as well that benefit from clandestine gang stalking. There is a follow the money element to gang stalking. Yes, there is, ladies and gentlemen. Gang stalking is an enterprise, as is all covert governmental activity. Okay, the military-industrial complex gets billions upon billions of dollars per month from the United States taxpayer so that it can mass produce the kinds of weapons technology that it takes to prosecute a clandestine gang stalking campaign. So if anybody benefits, it's the military-industrial complex. See my lecture on weapons technology and gang stalking. You will get a full comprehensive list of all the sophisticated weapons and surveillance equipment that goes into a clandestine gang stalking campaign. This is high grade, high quality, very sophisticated and very expensive military industrial grade weapons technology. Okay, that lets you know right then and there. That clandestine gang stalking is of a governmental nature. It's because the kinds of surveillance equipment and weapons technology that it takes to mobilize populations and to prosecute gang stalking campaigns, it can only be purchased and used by governments and government officials, or rather government representatives, or governmental actors, we'll call them, that are authorized to use this kind of stuff. Okay, it takes lots of training to use ultra low frequency or Vercator or Gyrotron or Stingray devices. It takes training to use these things. Okay, the kind of training that only a government can provide. So it has to be governmental in nature by virtue of the sophistication of the weapons technology and surveillance equipment that's used. That shows you right there it's governmental. So why are governments using this kind of technology, this kind of equipment on sovereign citizens? That hasn't been made known. That's been left to speculation. And so what guys like me have done is I've connected the dots. And since Congress won't come forward with the kind of information that the American people need with respect to how to meet this challenge, well, then I'll come forward with the information myself and give not only the American people, but people all across the world the information they need to meet the challenge. What is Operation Cowardice? Well, if you get a federal auxiliary that says, you know what, we ought to implement a more strategic societal program that sort of moves one segment of the population or various segments of the population to the side, and then all those left over we will use as cannon fodder for our mechanism. We believe that future societies will benefit from this, and here's why. Furthermore, we can give everyday persons that use this signaling mechanism the opportunity to see how it works. We'll give them the opportunity to use a clandestine signaling mechanism to accomplish a number of personal or professional goals that they may have. If their personal goal is to, maybe they don't like their neighbor and they want their neighbor to move out because simply they just don't like the neighbor. They don't have to be specific. I just simply don't like that neighbor. They're threatening, or they make me scared, or they could make up any reason. I don't like that neighbor. I don't like my next door neighbor. I want them to move. If you are plugged into the clandestine gang stalking mechanism, you can find help in your community from like-minded people to try and run your next door neighbor out of town. There are a number of protocols you got to follow. There are some rules you got to follow. There are some procedures you got to follow. But I can plug you into some people that'll help you get rid of your neighbor. That's the gang stalker mindset right there. And they'll use a system of community harassment and various other state-assisted thuggish and what you might call community harassment protocols to get rid of your neighbor. And then you can feel good about yourself. You can look at yourself in the mirror and pat yourself on the back. I got rid of my neighbor. They got on my nerves so bad that I just didn't want to look at them no more. And I was able to team up with my community to get rid of them too. That made me feel good. Made me feel like I accomplished something. Well, what's next? What is the next step? Okay, you got plugged into clandestine gang stalking. You got together with your community. You all set up a clandestine gang stalking campaign against your neighbor. You used a signaling protocol. You used all the rules and methods available to you. You used all the personnel available to you, and you were able to get rid of your neighbor. Using a combination of organized pestering, synchronization, and other intimidation tactics, you got rid of your neighbor. Now what? Well, says the stalker, I'm thankful to my fellow community harassers for working with me as a team of getting rid of this neighbor I didn't like. But you know what? There's a coworker that I have that I ain't too hot on either. Yeah. This guy, his name is Joe Smo. He works in the marketing department at my company. I don't too much care for him. Can you guys help me get rid of him? I don't want him working in the same company as me anymore. I think my job would be easier without him in the company, and I think my life would be easier without him in the company. And you know, as a clandestine gang stalker, I'm all about living my best life. So because my life will be made more fulfilled, my life would be more satisfying if I got rid of this person, how can y'all help me out? Well, the same people that helped you get rid of your neighbor will put together a little scheme to help you get rid of your coworker. All you got to do is find a reason. And quite frankly, you could make one up. You could say, well, this guy in marketing, he scares me sometimes. Sometimes he's loud over the phone. And one time he said something derogatory to me in a conference call. And one time he told my boss that I work too slow. And the guy looks like he's just a scary guy. He's a frightening guy. This Joe Smo that works over in marketing. I just think my life would be better without him. I think I'd have a better chance of getting promoted if he weren't in the company always saying stuff about me. Can you help me get rid of him? Your stalkers will go to work. If you're a stalker, your stalkers will go to work for you. Yeah, we'll see what we can do about that, old buddy, old pal. This Joe Smo guy doesn't sound like our kind of guy. Maybe we'll help you get rid of him just like we helped you get rid of your neighbor. Maybe we'll find somebody to pester him at work. Maybe we'll find somebody to vandalize his car when he's at lunch. Or maybe we'll find somebody to break into his home one morning. Or maybe we'll find somebody to pester his wife and kids one day, or maybe we'll try to find somebody in his neighborhood to harass him. All right? The same kind of stuff we did to your neighbor to get rid of him, we can find a way to get rid of this other enemy of yours as well. All you got to do is plug us in somehow. Plug us in. Maybe we could find a stalker to work with you, so you guys can send signals back and forth as to where the guy is. And we'll do it in such a way so as the Human Resources Department doesn't get wise. And I can promise you, you will never see a write-up as long as we got your back. You see? Those stalkers, they look out for each other, that I can promise you. Now, what does this mean for society today? What it means is this. If you're plugged into the organized mobbing mechanism, if you know the signaling mechanism, you can communicate with like-minded persons or other persons who are plugged into the signaling mechanism to accomplish various long and short-term goals that you may set for yourself. Okay, it's you and the stalkers versus the world. If you're not plugged into the gang stalking mechanism, if you are not a person that participates in signaling, if you are not a person that goes along with that program or even know how it works, you will very likely be one of the people that are descended upon by stalkers, and you constantly either have to fight them either administratively or in another capacity, or you just constantly have to avoid them. Because they're always around, they're always popping up, they're always crossing your path, they're always getting in your way, they're always mounting some sort of a campaign to disrupt you in some way. So the only way to get around that, if you yourself are either not involved with them or an actual targeted person, is you have to either avoid them, report them, or confront them. And that is a very hectic life for a person to live, especially a person who lives in a country that has a constitution that says all people born into this country have an inalienable right. That inalienable right that cannot be taken from you by any person, company, institution, or government. That inalienable right says you have the right to life, liberty, and happiness no matter what. And those are the most basic human rights that a person can have. Your rights as a person, your rights as a citizen don't get any more basic than that. Those are the rights that the United States Constitution is founded upon. Those are the rights that the Bill of Rights are founded upon. Those are the rights that the Declaration of Independence is founded upon. And if those rights are breached or abridged by a person, a company, an institution, an establishment, or a government, then you have one of two options in that particular scenario. And only two options do you have. The first option is to confront the problem, which is what I'm doing online with my company and my lectures and my videos and my articles. You can confront the problem, or you can allow the problem to overwhelm you. And I can promise you, ladies and gentlemen, with something like organized community mobbing, you do not want the problem to overwhelm you, because if the problem overwhelms you, there is no telling what the consequences for your life or the trajectory of your life will be. The possibilities are endless as to the destruction that clandestine gang stalking can do to a person if you lay there and let it conquer you. So what the national security apparatus is behind it? So what Congress has ratified it and enforced it and financed it and reinforced it and re-implemented it and re-justified it and allowed it to become a part of the American legal code and allowed it to be implemented in society as a human behavior experimentation mechanism. So what? It's David versus Goliath. It's the Bible story. Okay? The establishment is Goliath and you're David. What did the establishment do? Well, it picked a fight with the wrong person. Just like Goliath picked the fight with the wrong person. There's no telling the damage Goliath would have been able to do if he hadn't run into a shepherd boy named David. That shepherd boy was outnumbered. He was outmanned. He was outgunned. But he used a homemade weapon to slay the menace. And his life and the life of the children of Israel were better for it. And it led to the establishment of a unified kingdom of Israel. So it pays to be virtuous, it pays to be fortuitous, it pays to be courageous, it pays to be enterprising, it pays to be industrious, it pays to be principled, it pays to be tough, it pays to be gritty, it pays to be observant, it pays to be vigilant. It pays to be virtuous. It pays to be all these things, especially in the face of a behemoth, a hostile menace like clandestine gang stalking. Thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen.